Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Niner Family Huddle podcast. Dealing with some technical difficulties here, so hopefully the audio sounds okay. We'll see. Niners just lost to the Dolphins. Their playoff hopes are officially over, although they were over at kickoff. We're going to talk about that game, and we'll see what to expect from this team going forward after this. All right. So, disappointing loss. That was a frustrating game. You know what, actually? I was thinking about it today. It actually wasn't that frustrating for me because there was very little on the line. Like, the last Rams game to me was so frustrating. I was, like, having to, like, get up and I was, like, pacing around the living room getting frustrated. This game was, like, I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter, watching the game, like, they're frustrating me, but nah, I don't even really care. They just... I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. Now it kind of is frustrating me. But what were you guys kind of takeaways from this game? Because I've seen people blame, Kyle, Brock's getting shredded, the game plan, the special teams. I want to talk about Jake Moody a little bit, maybe a little later. But let's just start with Brock Purdy, actually. I think we're all on the same page. But let's start with the quarterback.
Well,
what'd you guys think of Brock's performance?
I'll jump in because I know Chasen's politely listening on mute because we've done this really cool effect with the audio to make it sound as like disjointed to symbolize this Niner season, right?
Right.
I feel like my biggest takeaway, honestly, from the game, I'm going to be a broken record, but just self-inflicted mistakes.
This team is a broken record.
Yeah, poor execution. I mean, the penalties and just like, you can blame Kyle, blame Brock, blame everybody, whatever. But it's just like they're not good enough to overcome that stuff and beat themselves. And it seems like some of them were silly mistakes too, like unnecessary personal fouls. I mean, it's just
late hits.
Yeah.
Not lined up. Ricky Pearsall was not lined up a couple times.
So, we've talked before about how that all rolls up to the coach. The buck stops with him. And I think, Ryan, you especially have talked about that being a sign of them maybe not being disciplined enough. But, I mean, so that's what they look like. They look like an undisciplined team. They look like they're not a very good team. They have flashes. They have potential. They still have some, firepower where they can keep it close and whatever, but they just cannot put it together for whatever reason. And the injuries hurt and all that stuff. But yeah, to me, it was just more of them beating themselves, which is exactly what they've done all year. And that's what teams that aren't good do. They beat themselves. They make it easy on the other team. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Do you have anything specific or just got an overall general takeaway, Jason?
I mean, I'm just disappointed in Brock Purdy. I really wanted him to have a good third year. I really wanted to believe in him going into his contract year. I wanted to be all in and be like, heck yeah, give him that $60 million. I don't even care. He a man. He push him in on that top 5 quarterback ranking. And we did a quarterback ranking earlier, and I was talking about how Brock is close to top 5 for me, and now I have so many question marks. It's like, is he the guy? Yeah, I still think he is, but this has not been a good season, and his non-clutch factor is very concerning because he's going to need to be clutch, especially in the playoffs, especially when we play good teams, and I just feel like he's just time and time again, he's just disappointed me. So it's very similar to Kyle in that, like, when things are going well, things are clicking, he looks amazing and he can pile it on. And when there's adversity, I just don't know. I'm not feeling confident that he's going to be able to deal with adversity. He's still very young, still very early on in his NFL career. So maybe he just has to go through some of these lumps and, We've seen Jared Goff and some of these other quarterbacks play their best ball later in their career. So maybe Purdy just needs a few more years, some scars, and then he'll get that clutch factor. I don't know, but I have concerns with the quarterback. That's the main thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah, Brock, obviously he was drafted last player picked, and it wasn't because he had a huge arm and a ton of athleticism. It was because he lacked those things. I think he surprised the Niners and even the league with how athletic he was, but he doesn't have a big arm. He's not big and tall and strong. And the reason why he's good at the NFL and at the college level is because he's smart and he knows how to read defenses and he knows how to make quality decisions. And for the most part, he's pretty accurate when he throws. But if he's going to be making bad decisions, like the last couple weeks, he's made some really bad interceptions. Because like every quarterback's going to throw interceptions, it's going to happen. But with the game on the line, if you're going to make throws that you just cannot make in those situations, what is Brock Purdy's superpower at that point? If he's not going to be a good decision maker, what does he have to fall back on? Because, the defense isn't always going to be elite. I think we've gotten spoiled over the last 4 or 5 years. The Niners have had kind of a consistent top five defense. We know Kyle's a good play caller. He can scheme up the run game, but the run game's going to be up and down. As we're seeing this year, the backs are getting hurt. The offensive line's not there. So when it comes time to say, all right, Brock, the other parts of this team are falling apart. What can you do for us to get us across the finish line and keep this team's playoff hopes alive? And unfortunately, time and time again, he just comes up short. And I talk a lot about his clutch factor. We've talked about it on this podcast several times now. And we text about it during the game. And I always say, like, here's an excellent opportunity to come in clutch, Brock. Here it is, right here, right now. And Steven, you asked in our text thread, like, what's your confidence level? And I said 50-50. And even when I sent that, I was like, that's high. A 50% chance of him coming through here is probably too high. It should have been 25-75. And these fourth quarter drives, don't they all feel like they kind of go the same way? Where like the first one or two plays, you're like chunk playing, you're like, we're driving, here we go. Oh, interception. It's just over like that. There isn't the methodical drive and they get down to the red zone and they just can't punch it in. Or maybe the interception comes late in the drive. It's always like chunk play, interception. And it's just over.
It's funny because I agree with you. It seems like this deja vu. I feel like when he makes the bad decisions, it's almost like he predetermines, I'm going to Juwan on this play. I'm going to Debo on this play. And it's like, the look be damned. He's just going to make it happen and put it where it's supposed to be. And it's like, he makes those decisions when he shouldn't. Yet when there's times where you could just feed Kittle, like we keep saying, or feed Pearsall or somebody, like there are guys that are open where you could totally do that, and you don't do it when you should, and then when you shouldn't, you force it, and it's like it just seems like it's bad decisions on both sides. I remember seeing something, might have been like right when he took over, maybe it was around his second year, I don't know, but I remember seeing something about like, oh, he's been so great at the NFL level. How did everybody miss on him? What was his college career like? And so they went back and looked at it because I knew nothing about his college career. I didn't know who he was in college. And apparently he had his most success his freshman year, and he got progressively worse as college went in terms of like team success and just how he looked as a player. So apparently after his sophomore year, he was thought of as going to be somebody who's going to be like a mid-round pick or even an early round pick, like not first, but maybe like into the second or into the third, somewhere in that range.
Like a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo type draft pick.
Right. So and then his junior and senior year, he just kind of kept regressing, it seemed like, or at least, in comparison to how he looked early on. Now, I can't verify that with like my own eyes.
I've heard the same thing. His first 2 years were better than his last 2 years.
Yeah. And so it just makes me wonder, is that because he doesn't have a counterpunch? He is what he is. You get tape on him. You figure out what to do. I mean, I texted you guys at the end of the game yesterday and said the book is out on the Niners and Brock. If it's a money situation, you got to have it. Pressure him because it happened in the Super Bowl. It's happened so many times this year where you send pressure, whether it's Brock's fault, Kyle's fault, the O line's fault, whatever. The combination of that, the Niners do not handle it well. Like in every other team, you see them playing prevent defense, and that's not always smart. But it's like, oh, the Niners are in this mode. Let's just send an extra pass rusher, and Brock will throw it up or make a bad decision, or the O line won't pick it up and we'll get a sack or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it shouldn't be that simple. In fact, that's what you should want as an offense is for them to bring an extra rusher because like, oh, I got it now. I know where my hot read is. I know that means somebody's open because they don't have as many in coverage. This is an opportunity for us to make a play. Like there's a reason that you don't often see it, but it obviously works against the Niners and it keeps working. And so where do you put that blame exactly? It's probably a combination of everybody, but I feel like it's got
Yeah.
to start with Brock because he's the one with the ball in his hands that's got to make that decision and recognize, crap, I don't have the read. If the answer's not in the play to steal the, Kyleism or whatever, then
Hmm.
tuck it and run. Make that decision right away. Do something because you are now in command of this situation. So I blame him more than anybody, as you can probably tell by what I'm saying, but I don't think it's all his fault. Anyways, it just makes me think that scouting reports are out there. There's a lot of tape on him now. The league is figuring him out. Maybe they're figuring out Kyle too, to a certain degree. And they gotta develop a counterpunch, and I sure hope they can this offseason.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like what you hear about Brock is how even keeled he is. He doesn't get too up, doesn't get too down. But in the game, it sure looks like he gets pretty panicky at times. He'll be jumping around, irregular movements in the pocket, like quite literally like jumping and doing just some goofy movements. Seems like he doesn't feel too comfortable. Like, I feel like especially recently when he's scrambled, it hasn't been like, I don't know. I don't know how to like say this, but like the path he chooses to go isn't a good decision. Like instead of stepping up and escaping where there's like an opening or whatever, he's like second guessing himself, and the scrambling just seems like not even like very good decisions. And so yeah, it's really weird. They are going to have to develop a counterpunch. I really hope they can. I mean, gosh, it's like he's undoubtedly an accurate quarterback. You put talent around him, and he can be good. So it's like there's a playbook there to where they can still be a very effective offense. It's just like I don't know if it's offensive line, so he doesn't feel as skittish back there. I really don't know what it is, but yeah, they're going to need something. Maybe it's not chucking the ball so deep anymore. Maybe our offensive scheme needs to change. I really don't know what it is, but developing a counterpunch is going to be like the key to this offseason, at least on the offensive side.
Well, even on that play where he threw the pick, like I know Chasen's man crush Calais Campbell made a good play, and I think
That was him putting the pressure on.
yeah, and contacted him like as he was throwing. So I think it affected the flight of the
Definitely.
ball, and so hey, props to Calais Campbell for doing that. But that was a straight on rush. Brock should have been able to anticipate better. Oh crap, he's closing. I got to get rid of it sooner. Like even the fact that he miscalculated that is worrisome to me. Like you've just got to know. And man, I mean, not that I want him to dump it off to Patrick Taylor because we saw how that went all day yesterday, but like you got to have an answer. Give him a move. He's the rusher who's free. He's also a 38-year-old, 300-plus-pound guy. I would like to think you could get around him if you need to, Brock. I mean, I don't remember what the rest of the pocket looked like on that play, so that's not fair. But I'm just saying, you know, you've got to know the situation and not, well, I'm going to stand in here till the very last second and try to fit this into JJ. It's like, it's not JJ on this one. So maybe Juice is open in the flat, or maybe, I don't know if he was in blocking. Maybe it's Kittle. Maybe it's Pierce all short or something. I don't know. But like take what the defense is giving you. Don't try to go for that home run all the time.
So Debo was running a clear out route up the seam. Jawan was running the 15-yard in cut or whatever it was, and then George was ran a quick little like 5-yard stopper and just kind of turned and sat there. Like he could have dumped it off to Kittle, I guess. If I'm guessing Kittle might have been his third read. If he had gotten there, he could have. I don't. It's hard for me to kind of sit here and judge Brock on that kind of stuff because I don't know what his reads are, and I don't know how to play quarterback at the NFL level, so I don't want to criticize him too much. And Calais Campbell did smack him, so I know that affected the throw. But what's interesting about it is, remember Brock made his debut against the Dolphins in 2022, and the Dolphins said after that game, who had Vic Fangio as their D coordinator, we threw out our whole defensive game plan as soon as Garoppolo went out because we just wanted to test this rookie, and we just blitzed the crap out of him. And Brock, to his credit, chewed them up for it. And the Bucks, the very next week, his first start against Tom Brady's Bucks, blitzed the crap out of him again. Remember the first play of the game, he got lit up, like welcome to the NFL type hit. But he got up and he had a great game that day. So I know that Brock can beat the blitz, but I've also seen the offensive line fail to pick up the blitz. So Brock certainly deserves some blame for struggling against the blitz at times this season, but to me, it's like a schematic issue. Like, I don't know if it's the offensive line, I don't know if it's Kyle, but they just do not. There's too many times where there's free rushers, and a lot of times when there's a free rushers, it's not because they're blitzing 6 or 7 guys. 5 guys are rushing, but 2 offensive linemen are blocking 1 guy, and Calais Campbell or whoever's coming free. It's like that is bad offensive line play. Like that, you cannot happen. I think on that play, pretty sure it was that play. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think it was that play. There's a still shot going around of Jake Brendel, and he's just like standing there, and he's like turned around looking at Brock because everybody is behind him, and he's just kind of looking like, "Oh crap, what do I do?" And like he just didn't block anybody on the play, so. Yeah, Brock's got to make a better decision. Maybe that decision is to just be like, crap, I just got to take the sack here because you just can't turn the ball over. But man, I saw a stat that he was like 22 for 28 for 200 plus yards and a touchdown or two in this game when he was in a clean pocket. So I feel like the offensive line was abysmal, and maybe Kyle's scheme. Like teams are kind of figuring out when and where to blitz Kyle's scheme, and they know that his offensive line is not going to pick it up. And Brock doesn't. Brock's been making mistakes, sure, but to me, it's like I kind of want to lean on the offensive line here. Like they were awful.
I agree. Like the offensive line, that's the thing. Is like when Brock gets pressured and he gets flustered, that's when a lot of these mistakes happen. Like even the pick against the Rams, he was. It looked like he forced it because of the pass rush that was coming. I think he would have made a better decision had that guy not been coming. And it's like, okay, we don't invest in the offensive line, but our quarterback struggles when he's under pressure. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If we invest in an offensive line, had an above average offensive line, I think that would do wonders for Brock. I think he'd make better decisions. He wouldn't feel as frantic back there. He wouldn't be jumping around. So, like, that's honestly my biggest Christmas wish list for the Niners is to draft a freaking, I don't even know what position. I want a right tackle, I think, more than anything, but we need to do something. I hope Jake Brendel's gone. I hope McKivitz is gone. I don't even mind if, like, Aaron Banks, I'm not sure if he's a free agent. I think he is.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind if we moved on. Like, let's get some, other than, what's his face, the rookie,
Pooney.
Mooney and Trent Williams are the only two that, in my opinion, you should keep fresh blood everywhere else, and maybe even move on from offensive line coach. I don't know. I don't know enough about offensive line coaches to really say that, but like we need to be changing something up because it's really not going well. So yeah, I agree. A lot of blame on the offensive line.
The Raiders drafted a center, Jackson Powers Johnson, early in the second round, and he's been like a revelation for them. He's been right there with Brock Bowers as like just they two home run draft picks, and he went a couple picks after Ricky Pearsall. And I like Ricky. I think he's a good story, especially after getting shot. He had 4 catches on Sunday, but man, Niners need. I think they should have taken Jackson Powers Johnson.
Well, even look at Rosengarten, I think his name is. He's the starting right tackle of the Ravens. I'm pretty sure he's had a pretty good rookie season as well. That's who the Niners liked. He was from the Huskies, right tackle for the Huskies, and the Niners reportedly were heavily interested, but he got picked, I think, just a few picks before the Niners could. But yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, so the offensive line has to get reworked entirely. New free agents, draft guys. There was a clip going around I saw on social media a couple weeks ago of Jim Harbaugh, and he was saying how the most important position group on a team is the offensive line because you can have a great quarterback, you can have a great running back and great wide receivers, and none of that matters if the offensive line isn't blocking to protect the quarterback or opening up run lanes for the running back. And Kyle and the offensive line coach Chris Forster have openly said they would rather have elite skill position guys and just kind of patchwork the offensive line. And I think that strategy needs to be rethought. They need to get the offensive line going. When your quarterback's Justin Herbert and he's 6'6", maybe you can get away with not having an elite offensive line because he can hang in there tough and move around and throw the ball. But Jim Harbaugh surrounds him. They drafted Joe Alt 5th overall. Malik Neighbors was sitting right there. They needed a wide receiver, and he still went Joe Alt. And they already had Rashawn Slater. So now they've just got a powerhouse offensive line. And look how good the Chargers are playing this year. And we've seen Brock when he's got time. I still believe in Brock, but I think he needs help, just like every quarterback needs help. And one of the best ways you can help him is to protect him and give him time to use his superpower, which is his mentality and his ability to read defenses and deliver the ball. And he can't do that if he's running for his life every other play. Every other play. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think it's not a big secret that O-line is hugely important. I also think that in general, I don't know, this is going off the top of my head, you've got to find that balance because it's not like the teams with the best O-lines end up winning the Super Bowl every year, right? You have to have a good one,
right,
for sure, but you can overinvest in it. It's interesting that you said Harbaugh said that, and what were the Niners known for? In the Harbaugh era, they had hands
they had the
down
Monstars on the offensive line.
Exactly, their offensive line was incredible, and if you had to say the best O lines right now in the league, they're really good teams, right? It's probably the Lions,
Eagles.
It might be the Eagles, I think even the Falcons are known for having a good O line, and that's probably the only thing keeping them relevant right now. And I'm sure there's other teams too. But it seems like the teams that finish, because the Eagles haven't won a Super Bowl with this offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Lions, we'll see. Maybe this is their year finally. And I'm not trying to argue against it. I'm just saying, I think you need to have a good O-line, but I think you need to not overdo it with the O-line because there's only so much that it can do for you. It gets to a point of diminishing returns. So do the Niners need to rework it? Yes. They need some young, fresh blood in there that wants to go out there and just destroy people and are nasty and hungry. But I also don't want them to just okay, we just got to focus on O-line to the detriment of, other areas because they need more help than just O-line.
Yeah, they need help everywhere.
One of their picks to be offensive line. I feel like the Bengals are another example of a team that okay, franchise quarterback stud, receivers studs, O-line abysmal. Joe Burrow gets hurt all the time because he's getting crushed all the time. And I feel like the elite teams, like the ones we mentioned, including the Chiefs invest a lot. They're paying not even just tackles, but paying guards and centers and stuff. And hey, Mahomes is usually pretty clean. I think this season has been a little bit different, but he's usually pretty clean, and it allows him to be clutch and finish the games because he's got some room to operate. So I want them to significantly invest in their offensive line. That's just my opinion.
I think the Chiefs really focused on pass protection. Like, I mean, I know that they're running the ball better now than they have historically too, but I think their O line, like that's their strength. They wanted to go out and get pass pro guys, and that makes sense because you got the Magic Man back there. Let him give him time to work his magic. um, but yeah, it's just so hard to have both. It's like if it were, I just don't know how many slam dunks there are. I mean, isn't O line like maybe the position of the most scarcity in the league? I mean,
Well, I think interior guys you can kind of find anywhere. It's like premier left and right tackles. Good luck.
yeah,
Like if you're not drafted into the top 10, you're not finding one in free agency. The fact that the Niners traded for Trent Williams was an anomaly,
yeah, yeah,
especially for the price they got him.
yeah,
And like the Eagles have a really good left tackle who they just found some dude playing rugby and just developed him over the years from Australia, and now he's just like stuff like that just does not happen. So you're gonna have to find these guys in the top 10 of the draft. And the Niners right now are, oh shoot,
Can you pull it up? I want to see it. It's got to be, what, 13 or something?
I
Well,
have it on my phone. I didn't send it to the computers, but I can pull up the website. I
while
can
you're
pull up
doing that, the
Tankathon.
thing that scares me about looking to free agency is it's such a crapshoot with O line, and you have to way overpay to get a good O lineman. Like, look at how much McGlinchey's getting paid in Denver.
I was about to say that.
McGlinchey's a good O lineman, and I think we would all take McGlinchey over McKivitz if you had to choose. I mean, at least for his run game pass or run game blocking, but I don't want to pay McGlinchey that kind of money that he's getting
Hell
paid,
no.
and that's kind of what it's going to take. You're gonna pay similar price tag to a similar caliber player if you're looking to free agency.
That's why they've got to go draft, especially this year. So they're sitting at 11 right now.
It's a good pick.
They obviously just lost to Miami. Indy, Cincy, they're not playing. So the Bears, the Jets, and the Panthers are probably all going to lose at least one more game. So they're going to end up with 12 losses. So maybe at best the Niners can get the 10th pick if they lose out and the Saints win a game. The Saints are playing right now, I think, against the Packers, which I'm
Again,
sure they're going to lose.
yeah.
So they're going to be 5-10.
They're gonna be somewhere between 10 and 16. I don't see how they can get any higher than 10, like you said, Ryan. But I also don't see them getting any lower than 16.
Yeah, they're not getting inside the top 10's probably as high as they're going to get. And you know, there's Arizona at 16. They gotta lose that game. Yeah, so that's where they're at right now with the draft. I was looking at a big board, and I just saw like some edge rushers, and there's a tackle from the University of Texas who's supposed to be really good. He was ranked right around 10. Kyle went to the University of Texas, so I'm sure he's watching him, and who knows, maybe he likes him. Um, One more question about Brock Purdy. Do you think that 2023 was his ceiling, and do you think what we're seeing right now in 2024 is his floor? And if you agree with that, are you okay with paying that player, assuming he'll be somewhere in between there over the next 4 or 5 years, a 55-ish million dollars a year? Or do you think 2023 was maybe an anomaly because everyone was healthy and they got lucky? Or do you think 2024 is maybe a little bit of an anomaly because there's been so many things that have just gone wrong for this team this year?
Do you mean ceiling, anomaly, whatever? Are you saying all this in terms of results, or are you talking about his
his production, like
his play, like
he
play
threw
in and
well
play
over,
out.
over 30 touchdowns to 11 picks. Right now he's like, I don't even know, 16 touchdowns to 10 picks. Like we saw a quarterback in 2023 who was, he got MVP votes, he got the team to the Super Bowl and nearly won it. And in 2023, they're not even going to have, or in 24, they're not even going to have, they're in last place in the division. They're not going to make the playoffs. His touchdown to interception ratio is barely over 1 to 1. Like, have we seen his floor and his ceiling, or no?
Uh, so the reason I try to ask the clarifying question is because even though I just crapped on Brock earlier when we were talking, I actually feel like Brock this year on like a play in and play out basis, like the version of Brock that we have this year is actually better than 2023 Brock Purdy as an individual player. That doesn't mean he's always making better decisions. That obviously doesn't mean they're having better results, but I feel like he seems like he moves a little better. He seems, I get what Chasen's saying about at times he can seem jumpy, but I feel like overall he stays pretty poised. Um, and I feel like I've seen him make, like, I expect him to make accurate throws. When he makes an inaccurate throw, I'm surprised. Usually there's a reason for it. Bad weather, pressure, whatever, right? Like there's something that causes it. So oddly enough, I feel like he might be better. Like if 2023 he had a Madden rating of 80, but he had production at a 90 level. In 2024, I think he has a Madden rating of 85, but his production is at a 70 level or something like that. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like individually, I think he might actually be better and improved, but obviously the results are far worse. I don't know if this is his floor, Ryan. I would like to think that it is, or that it's close to it, because I do think there's been just this avalanche of misfortune that has, befallen the Niners this year. Um, I don't think last year was his ceiling. I think he can actually be better than last year because I think he as a player can continue to improve. Like Chasen said earlier, he's still really young. So I think he can continue to improve. And I think he is going to get smarter and make better decisions as he goes. And I do think that the Niners will put him in a better position to succeed. I think this is going to be a big learning lesson this season, and they're going to take their lumps. And whether that does mean, okay, we finally have to invest in the offensive line, or okay, we can't force feed Debo, every third play, thinking that he's going to solve it and make it easier on Brock, or whatever, right? But like it, I mean, I said the misfortune. The offensive player of the year that he could rely on all year last year, gone for pretty much the entire season. His number one target from last year missed half the season and wasn't in shape. I mean, it's like, what do you expect? Like how would a lot of the other players look, like other quarterbacks in the league look, if, hey, I'm going to take away your top target for at least half the year, and your best player on offense is going to miss pretty much the whole year. Good luck. Like, I mean, I would like to think that this is about as bad as it gets because of the circumstances.
Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are interchanging their weapons all the time. Doesn't seem to phase them.
Josh
They're out there
Allen,
fighting.
Josh Allen's different, man. You know that.
Yeah, that's why they get paid what they paid. And if the Niners pay Brock, 55 plus, like that means that you think he can do what those guys do. And so far, he's proven that he can.
How many other Josh Allens are there?
Just Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. There's again two other Josh Allens.
I,
I see. One of the things I wanted to do this offseason, maybe shortly after the season, I was going to make a tier list of all the quarterbacks. And for me, Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the sport.
I agree.
Right now, like, so when you say how many other Josh Allens are there in the NFL right now, zero. Maybe like uh John Elway, maybe. Like there might be one or two in the history of the NFL that are like Josh. Like Josh to me is unique.
Yeah. He's the man. Right now, for me, it goes Josh, Lamar, and then Patrick, just based on recency bias of this season.
Interesting. It's funny because I right now, just off the top of my head, haven't given it any thought. I still got to put Patrick Mahomes number one just because of what he's proven in his track record. And I would say the only one that's close to Josh Allen is Lamar. But I think I'm higher on Lamar than both you guys. I think I always have been. And that is a compliment to Lamar for me to even say that he's comparable to Josh Allen because I think Josh Allen is better. I think he's a better all around player, quarterback, whatever you want to say. So my rankings would probably be one, Patrick Mahomes, two, Josh Allen. And right now I'm having a hard time coming up with somebody I'd put ahead of Lamar Jackson at number three.
Yeah, so I'm not going to, obviously, we're not doing this
Yeah.
right now, but I'm going to make a tier list of the quarterbacks and kind of rank them, and then we'll go through and agree and disagree. But, Jason, what do you think as far as Purdy's ceiling and his floor? Have we seen him?
Yeah, I actually think we have seen his floor, and I think it was this season. I don't think this season could get much more cursed all around. Like Steven said, with Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, I'd like to see him persevere, have a better season, be able to put a Superman cape on. But it's been a rough season. I don't know if the pressure for a contract is weighing in, if any of that even matters. I mean, Brock does seem, or the narrative is he's pretty unflappable. But I would say last year, I think that his ceiling is even above that. I think with some of that really good talent like he had and a few more years in this league to learn, like completely master all the nuances of Kyle's offense, I think he's going to reach even higher heights than that. Um, Whether that's year 5, year 6, I don't know. He's obviously still got a long, long career ahead of him. So no, I don't think he's reached his ceiling. I really don't. And this floor of this ceiling, it feels like it to me, barring like a significant injury would be a floor and he's just not playing. I feel like this is the worst he's going to play. Knock on wood. I'm going to knock on this wood right here. But and then the last question: are you comfortable paying him $60 million? No, I'm not right now. I'm not. I don't know that if that means sign him up for 50. I don't know if that means make him play out another year. I'm not smart enough to have the answer to that and to know how contract negotiations work. But I'm not comfortable giving him $60 million right now.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Jason. I wonder if his ceiling can be higher. Probably not much higher than it was in 2023 as far as production because he had an all-pro wide receiver, an all-pro tight end, and an MVP candidate at running back. So I don't know how much higher, but I do think he can still grow and improve and be a top tier, top eight-ish quarterback. Um, all right, couple quick topics, and then we'll get out of here. Did Jake Moody seal his fate on Sundays? So I was listening to Greg Papa. He was talking about this, and he was basically saying like, "Oh, the Niners, they're not going to cut him, but maybe they'll bring in a couple kickers for training camp, and they'll have just like an open competition." Do you think the 49ers will do something like that, or do you think Kyle Shanahan is just so damn frustrated at this point? Because we saw him on TV throw the tablet down and break it. Is he just gonna cut him? Is John Lynch gonna convince him like, no, we spent a third round pick, keep him around, open competition? What do you think?
I feel like to the Niners' credit, I don't know if this is Kyle, John, whoever, they have shown that they'll cut bait, that they're not just going to force something with players like they did with Trey Lance, basically. Like they made the decision, they knew it wasn't going to look good. Like that's the ultimate example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they did the same thing, which he kind of made it easy, but like with Reuben Foster, like they've had high picks that you would think that they're invested in, that when they figure out, look, this guy doesn't have it, then they move on. And I think that is a good thing that they do that. And so I could see Moody's days being numbered. I'm not saying cut him outright. I hope they bring in other kickers and they do an open competition. I'm wondering, like, I don't know how bad their salary cap situation is going to be. It seems like there's always ways to do gymnastics or whatever,
Right now, they have the most cap space in the NFL.
which is awesome. But they pretty much got that earmarked, right, for Brock. Like
Yeah,
that's what they're
yeah.
thinking. So I wouldn't be surprised if all the specialists are gone next year. I don't want them to get rid of Mitch. To me, he's the most valuable of the three. I would keep Mitch
If he can
around
stay healthy,
if
how
he can.
many teams freaking punters get hurt?
Yeah, exactly. That's the bad thing about it. But like Pepper, like I think I've enjoyed having him as a long snapper. Great. But like he's a veteran now. So even if he's making like the veteran minimum, like you can probably go get a cheaper long snapper that's going to do just as good of a job. There's new guys coming out every year.
One plays for Huskies.
Yeah, exactly.
Johnston,
Yeah. so so
bring him in.
you could
He'll play for like 50 grand probably.
yeah, exactly. You're not allowed to pay him that little, but yeah, he
That's
would.
right.
But anyways, my point is like Moody Bean, what was he, a third round pick?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how his contract compares to like an average kicker's contract, but I would think that this will be his third year next year as a third round pick. It's probably starting to creep into that neighborhood of like we might be able to find a cheaper option. Won't be a household name, but I don't know. I think I've seen enough. Unless he can change my mind, I'm not going to be like, oh man, it's so sad that they moved on from Moody. I feel like I'm kind of fed up with him.
Yeah, I'm equally fed up. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he went and signed some bad team and ended up having like a long, solid career. But I'm fed up. I'm ready to move on. I hope they bring him some competition. Love his big leg, but don't love that he can't put it between the uprights as consistently.
And he
It's
can't even use his big leg to consistently kick touchbacks.
yeah. So overall, I'm definitely ready to move on.
Well, most years kickers
Here's
don't
his
get
contract,
drafted,
by the way.
right? Like in most NFL drafts, you don't see a kicker get drafted, or if you do, it's really late. So I have no idea what college kickers are like this year. If there's good ones, bad ones, whatever, right? Haven't done any scouting on college kickers, but
Nor will we.
you could potentially, yes, thank you. You could potentially get the best kicker or a top 3 kicker in the country in the 7th round. So that would be way cheaper than Moody and probably somebody who will give you the same results that he's given you so far. So to me, it seems like I'm not saying waste another draft pick on a kicker. I'm saying if worse came to worse, from a financial standpoint, you could do that. If you couldn't go out and just sign some guy off the street or sign a free agent for less money, that would be an option. Reload the kicker, try it again before you have him piss away another season. Because I think that, I blame the Rams loss squarely on him, the first Rams loss of the year. And I feel like that just set the team on a downward slide. And I also feel like he made a stupid decision to hurt himself. I know he's trying to make a play, but like, come on. Anyways, I'm fed up.
Yeah, if the Niners spend a draft pick on a kicker, I'm going to lose my mind. Undrafted free agents or NFL free agents, even a 7th round pick. I don't care if it's Mr. Irrelevant. You could find your starting quarterback in Mr. Irrelevant. Juwan Jennings was in the 7th round. Do not draft a kicker ever again, 49ers. All right, so Kyle met with the media again today on a conference call. He said Trent Williams is not going to play anymore this season. He's done. My guess is he probably could play, but there's nothing to play for, so what's the risk? Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, also done for the final 2 games of the season. And then Dre Greenlaw, he said they're likely to shut him down, but if Dre's feeling good and Dre wants to play, then Kyle's going to let him play. But they just have to kind of see how he's feeling, because Kyle acknowledged that it would be in Dre's interest to get out there and play and show the league that he's ready to go and get back to his normal self. So there's, free agent. there's a conversation to be had there. We can maybe see how these next two games play out before we talk about that. Do you think there's any other players that the 49ers should shut down? Obviously, I mentioned Trent Williams, Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks. Those guys are hurt. Are there any veterans that you think, you know what, it's not worth it for those guys to go out and play in these final two games and risk having the type of injury that damages next season?
To me, there's one obvious one, and it's Bosa because he's already been dinged up, and I got to think that he's not at full health right now. He's just playing because of pride, and he's the guy who said we'll see who wants to be here next year, so he's going to lead by example and all that, and love that, appreciate that. But is there a more important defensive player? I mean, I think Fred is our leader, best all around.
Also playing on a bum ankle.
Right. Which good luck getting him out of there. I mean, he'd probably, fight whoever tries to take him off the field. But Bosa is at a more premier position, if you will. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they have to. I'm just saying, imagine if Bosa tears an ACL in these last two games, or something that's connected to the hip because he's already had hip issues. So maybe it's not the ACL, but it's something that lingers, like you said, into next season. Like it doesn't seem worth it to me with him. He's he's a high performance vehicle. We got to protect him.
What do you think, Jason?
I mean, I want to shut everyone down. There's no point anymore. I kind of want to shut Fred down too, but like you said, I doubt he'd want to. I want to shut Greenlaw down and sign him to a contract that he deserves and let him have this offseason to get right fully and come back with a vengeance and have a full training camp and yada yada. I want to shut everyone down except for some of the offensive players that I want to go that I still want to go stat hunting. I need Kittle. Yeah, and Juwan to keep producing so they can get to their 1,000-yard season. But shut all the defensive players down. Yeah, I lean pretty heavily towards just shutting them down. Call it a season.
What about Brock?
Honestly, that's a great question. I have to think about it. What do you think, Steven?
I want Brock to play. I feel like because he hasn't been on his game. I feel like the more live game reps he can get right now, the better. He's learning from everything. He's still 24 years old. Yes, it would be devastating if he got hurt, right? Like we don't want that to happen. But the harsh, cold business side of it, if he does get hurt in the last two games, he's still under contract for next year. He doesn't cost you a whole lot of money. You still own his rights. And there's going to be guys out there like Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, that you could sign as like a stopgap. I'm not saying do it. Please don't don't take this as that.
No,
I'm saying
that's where the conversation would go if Brock got hurt. It's like, well, who's available.
right. I'm just saying from
Chains.
the cold business decision is you still have some control over him at a low cost if you aren't going to pay him, or you leverage it in the contract negotiations. Hey, Brock, you're still our guy. We still want to move forward, but we don't know how you're going to come back from this. So we'll give you a long-term deal, but it's going to be $40 million a year. And we're taking a gamble on you. You go with us like that. There's
a short-term deal, like 2 years.
Right.
Because we don't know if you're going to be the same guy.
But I feel like more than most, other than maybe some of the rookies, he needs to play. But hey, Ryan, what do you think? And Chase, you can give your opinion too. But you shared what Kyle said about show the league what he can do, referring to Dre Greenlaw. Do you think that's a preparing people for him not being around, or do you think that that's just him doing a sly little nod, but they know that they're going to do what it takes to get him back? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, Dre said a week ago that he wants to play and he wants to make money. So I know he wants to get a lucrative contract. Like Jason said, one that he deserves. If he can't stay on the field, I don't know that the 49ers can re-sign him. I think, especially when you've got young guys like D. Winters and Tatum Bethune and Jalen Graham there, if he wants like a 1 year $5 million contract or something, like he's willing to play for that or even cheaper, then I would say the 49ers could probably go ahead and bring him back. But I feel like if Dre goes out and plays for the next 2 weeks and he's starting to get his legs underneath him a little more, there's going to be teams that are going to want him. I mean, I could think of like I already saw an article from Dallas Cowboy fans talking about like they should go get Dre Greenlaw. We see the Detroit Lions are devastated on defense. Do they want to bring in Dre Greenlaw? You know he would fit in excellent with the knee biters over there. You know, Adam Peters is trying to build some culture over there with Washington. Would they want Dre Greenlaw? I think he's going to have a sneaky good market. And because of that, the Niners aren't going to be able to afford to match what other teams are willing to give him. So I feel like it's in the Niners' interest to shut him down because that could suppress his market. But in Dre's interest, he's going to want to go out and play and show the league. Even if he wants to be a Niner, he's going to want to test free agency to see what he's worth and then bring those offers to the Niners and say, match it or I'm out. So I'm just one podcast episode ago, I was saying they have to re sign Dre, and I want Dre, but I don't know that they're going to be able to afford him, and I'm bracing for a 49ers team without him.
Every team should want him.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like, I mean, we just, not that we're the be all end all experts, but we were just talking about how there's not a lot of great linebackers in the league right now, or at least it seems like it's hard to name those guys, you know. I feel like he has only, in the fleeting glimpses that we've gotten the last 2 weeks of him, only reinforced his importance to this team.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there's something about him and Fred working in tandem that, like, yeah, I get it. He's going to want to go out and get whatever deal he can. And I think he'll be good anywhere he goes because of who he is and the skills he has. But I got to think that if not the best version, one of the best versions of Dre Greenlaw is in this Niners D alongside Fred Warner. Jason, it looked like you're going
Yeah.
to say something.
I forgot what I was going to say, but I'm going to be very sad if Dre Greenlaw is no longer a 49er. And I think what I was going to say was, I wonder, like, if they shut him down for that reason to suppress his market, if that would make him feel jaded. And he'd be like, oh, well, screw you. Now I am going to leave. I'm going to go sign a 1-year deal with the dang Raiders or whatever team, X team, to go get a big contract there. Because I've definitely heard players being upset and feeling like they got their market value squashed because of coaching decisions or not getting the ball as much as they feel like they should. So I wonder if that's part of it. I want him to shut him down just so he's healthy because I'm just nervous that he's going to hurt himself again because he plays like a wild man and he's already knocked himself out of the 2 games he's played in. So I'm nervous. He's a wrecking ball out there. And yeah, I hope they resign. I mean, what is he, 26? Like, he's younger than Fred. How old is he?
27, I would
27.
say. Yeah, and
2019
I don't
was
know
his
that they
rookie
would shut
year.
him down because they want to suppress his market. I think they would shut him down to protect him, and that would just kind of be like a sly little, nice little benefactor of that.
It's a dangerous situation for him, though, too, because it would be a lot worse for him to seriously hurt himself because he keeps trying to play when he's not ready. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough. That's another thing that I feel like I just get this vibe. I don't know, but I feel like the Niners are pretty player friendly for the most part, and like it doesn't seem like they begrudge guys for going and getting big contracts elsewhere. They obviously try to take care of their, you know,
Comp pick.
yeah, no, yeah, they get
He's
comp picks.
25, 20, he's 27. He shares a birthday with Sam, May 25th.
Whoa, that's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But anyways, it does, like I don't feel like other than Willie Snead, you hear a whole lot of bitterness, and that wasn't even about how they treated him contract wise. That was about playing time, right? And how he felt like he wasn't getting the opportunity to show what he could really do. What I'm saying is, I feel like the Niners tend to do right by players when it comes to their financial interests. Like they don't stand in their way to prevent a guy from getting more money because it would be in their interest to keep them on the team. Um, I don't know. I mean, I would hope that John Lynch, as a former player, would look out for the players' best interests.
Right. And I'm sure Kyle does too. It's Jed York and Parag Marate. That's the front office. Those guys who are probably, those are the guys fighting tooth and nail in these contract negotiations. Probably not as much Kyle and, well, I mean, John has to. It's kind of his job. But all right, last question. What do you want from Santa for the 49ers?
I have a few answers. I'm
Go
going to go
ahead.
first. Do they have to be realistic?
No, there's nothing about Santa's realistic. I mean, I don't know who listens to this. Your kids listen to this.
He's
Santa's
very
definitely
real.
real.
He's very real. It's just
And he'll grant whatever you ask for. So, yeah.
he's magic, so he can. It doesn't have to be realistic because he can create whatever you want, Jason.
You're right. You're right. Okay. So I'm going to go to varying degrees, varying levels of realistic. Okay. So very unrealistic. I want Robert Saleh back as our defensive coordinator and Mike. What's Mike's last name? McDaniels?
McDaniel.
Back as
No S.
defensive coordinator. That's my very unrealistic wish. What I would say is, I guess, moderately realistic is I want us to spend our top pick this year on an offensive tackle. That's my somewhat realistic. And then my realistic, what was it? It just fleeted my brain. My realistic one. Oh, I want them to resign Dre Greenlaw as my realistic one. Resign Dre Greenlaw, somewhat realistic. Draft an offensive tackle with the top pick. Very unrealistic. I want Salah and McDaniels back.
If you had to choose between Mooney and Dre, who you picking, Chase?
Dre Greenlaw.
What do you think, Ryan? I'm going to answer your question, but just him talking about Dre.
Probably Dre because Dre's like got that culture fit, even though I love Mooney and I think Mooney is an excellent culture player. Mooney's a couple years older and he plays a position that requires speed and athleticism, and he's probably starting to lose that a little bit at 29 years old. And Dre, of course, his game is based on speed and athleticism as well, and he's coming off a devastating injury. But I think Dre's got more in the tank than Mooney does at a position that, even if you slow down at linebacker, you can still play the run. You start slowing down on the outside at corner, and you start getting cooked, you cannot stay on the field. So I would take Dre.
So I was thinking like real big when you said like, what do you want from Santa? But I mean, it's probably too early because it would be like next Christmas to ask for this. But like, I want another Super Bowl.
Home game. It'll be a home game next year where Niners are hosting.
That would be amazing to have a home game Super Bowl for the Niners. Something that I really want, that I thought we were early in the season on pace for this year, that I would want again next year, is Defensive Player of the Year for Fred. I feel like he is somehow underrated for as good as he is, and I know he hasn't had the best year, and I think that's because he's been dinged up. We've talked about like the coverage not being as good and everything, but I feel like the fact that he's playing on that broken bone and still as good as he is, like, I don't think there's many guys in the league that can do it. I just love Fred. I feel like he epitomizes so much about what's right when it comes to being a professional football player. So I just want really good things for him, and I want him to get like that respect. So I would absolutely love if he could put together a fully healthy campaign and have some of those balls bounce his way. Like, he already earns certain things, but like, a couple of those easy picks that happen to hang in the air just long enough for him to get there. I would just love to see him have a season where he fills up the stat sheet.
Like what he was doing in the first month of the season.
Exactly. Like, be able.
And I thought he played really well on Sunday against the Dolphins. He was flying around making tackles in the run game. I thought he looked good.
He's the man. I just want him to get that respect, I guess. I talked about the Super Bowl thing. Of course, I want that at any time. But I really want George Kittle to win a Super Bowl. Like, I hope they can do it before he's
becoming like the Frank Gore, the Joe Staley. Like,
right.
Get one for him.
Right, exactly. Win one for George. I mean, Fred too, but Fred's even a little younger and probably has a little bit more time. I know they both play positions that don't age
Even
well.
Trent Williams too, who's not a career Niner, obviously, but
Trent, I would love to see it for him too because he seems like a good dude. But Anyway, so if we're talking wish list though, like more like roster that direction that Chasen went, I'd have to see who the prospects are and like where their pick ends up before I would say get an O lineman with their first pick. I'm not going to be upset, but I'll stand by what I said before. If it's between a stud D lineman and a stud O lineman, give me the D lineman. I feel like that's going to make a bigger impact on the team, especially if it's interior. Um, then you can go use the second and third and fourth round picks on the O line. As far as I'm concerned, buy yourself a whole bunch of lottery tickets. But I want that just breathe fire beast in the middle of the defense that is gonna dominate. Um, Gosh, I feel like so many things are just related to health. Like I want Ayuk to come back like he was last year. I hope he comes back motivated, healthy, able to do his things. I want McCaffrey to come back, and he just has to be healthy. I think he's always motivated. Like so. As far as bringing in players or who to retain, I mean, yeah, I love Dre. I don't want him going anywhere, but I kind of agree with you, Ryan, that like he could price himself out of the Niners range, and I don't want them investing too much money in linebackers. So it's kind of like a balancing act that you have to find. I, I would just, I think ideally, if they could somehow find like a role player type O lineman, like a vet that's not going to be a household name, that's not, but is going to be somebody solid that you can put in at one of the interior spots. And gosh, I mean, I still want that pass rusher opposite Bosa. It just feels like it's impossible to do it. But like if you could draft a stud D lineman, draft one or two other O linemen that might be able to make an impact, sign a vet that's like it just seems like it's all in the trenches, right? And then somehow, some way, find the money to get you know, even if it's an older guy, I don't even care about that as long as he's still productive. Somebody like Leonard Floyd, only better production. That would be, I feel like, the quickest path to instant, contention again, because I'm not worried about the weapons. I feel like the weapons are fine, and I'm not ready to give up on Brock or anything like that. So, anyways, that's a lot of wishes, a lot of different directions I went there, but yeah, you said Santa can do it, right? So
So that's a lot of gifts Santa's meant to bring.
All right, Santa. I want the Niners to trade for Max Crosby.
ooh,
All right, so there you go. There's your player opposite Nick Bosa. Done.
yep.
And then I'll keep my second wish will be easy. I don't care who they draft or where they draft. I want them to just hit on every pick.
Mm.
I don't care what position. I don't care if it's O line, D line. Just have another draft class like the one they just had, where they hit on like nearly every single pick, especially in the first 3 rounds. Hit on the picks. I don't care what position they are, who they are. Just hit on them.
Is it even possible to trade for Max Crosby? Like, what's his contract situation?
He signed an awful contract. He's really cheap. That's why, like, and the Raiders suck, and they could probably use the draft capital to rebuild. But of course, you want to have pieces to rebuild around. So every time the trade deadline creeps up, people are always like, "Go get Max Crosby. Go get Max Crosby." Even Myles Garrett was talked about a little bit this past trade deadline, but Max Crosby and Nick Bosa would be just wow, probably the best edge rushing tandem ever.
Micah Parsons has even been talked about recently. I don't know how real it is. I'm sure that Dallas is going to re-sign him to a monster contract, but there's been some whisperings of trade rumors about Micah Parsons too with his contract coming up.
Yeah, obviously the problem for Micah is you'd have to give up multiple ones and maybe more, and then a fresh contract on top of that. Whereas Max Crosby, you probably still have to give up a ton of draft capital, but the money's already been paid. A lot of the money's been paid by the Raiders, so you just have to fit what's left under your salary cap. And the Niners probably could do that. And if they traded for him and then go to Brock and say, look, we're going to pay you a little less because we just traded for this savage, what do you say?
Now,
It's ridiculous, but Santa can do it.
I wonder what his price tag would be, because I mean, yeah, that's like a fantasy come to life. But and even you said Myles Garrett was being discussed, and who knows if the Browns are gonna rebuild, reload, whatever, what it would take to get a guy like that. But that would be so awesome. Like if they, I mean, for all the reasons we know, but I mean, it's just like, just say F it to the rest of the league. Here we come. We're back and we're going for it.
Maybe plan B, if you can't get Max, is to go get big bro Bosa, Big Ben.
Well, I think they tried to, or at least there's rumors that they were very interested in both of the Chargers edge rushers. Back when it was heavily thought that they were going to move on from at least one of them. So I think the Niners, I wouldn't be surprised if they made some kind of a splash. Like, I really wouldn't. They're not afraid to do it. And I agree, Max Crosby would be a dream because he's a fantastic culture fit. He's 27, so he's in the prime of his career. That would be unbelievable.
It just, I've heard that like the Raiders will never trade with the Niners and never do anything to help the Niners.
Yeah.
That's why I need Santa to work some magic.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like the Niners would have to dramatically overpay in order to do it, and that sucks.
Probably. Yep. All right, Santa. We'll see what you can do. Yep, that's all I got. You guys good?
I'm good. Merry Christmas. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, I think as good as we can be. It's sad that it's officially over in terms of their playoff hopes, but I mean, it's kind of felt that way for a while now.
Yeah. It's funny. They got Brock has kind of been like, okay, they got their franchise guy probably. So the off season are going to be kind of boring because there's no quarterback drama with like Trey and Jimmy. Like, nuh-uh. This is going to be a very interesting off season. So I'm looking forward to talking through it.
Very pivotal. Yeah, they've got a lot that they've got to take care of, and we'll see.
It's an interesting year to have started our podcast. Like, there's a lot of question marks right now.
Yeah, the Niners are elite at providing content to talk about.
They are. All right. Peace out, guys.
Merry Christmas.
See you later. Merry Christmas, y'all.